Welcome to another round of Cybersecurity Awareness Month topics by Uniquely. So, for this round, we wanted to present you with the ways to actually quantify the cybersecurity risk and pay attention to the actual benefits that can come from taking care of cybersecurity. This can be particularly useful for a CISO, obviously, so fractional CISO who needs to, persuade the CEO to dedicate a certain budget to cybersecurity product or services, or even for sales teams that want to get a high-level overview of how to actually quantify something, because, at the end, every client or every person doesn't really care about what we say they want to see on paper, a business case, and actually defined, analysis that shows, okay, this is how much we will probably lose in the next couple of years. Even if your exit strategy of the company is in the next 2 or 3 years, there is a certain potential that your company will be breached. So for a high level overview of how to actually start quantifying risks, what needs to be done in the beginning to actually have an asset inventory, to have the evaluation and valuation of every asset. For example, computers, accounts, everything should be, priced correctly, or at least somewhere similar to the actual price that you bought it for. Then afterwards, there are some threat event frequency analysis that can be coupled by some industry standards. For example, if you're in healthcare, you can watch all of your competitors or similar companies that were breached in the past and see how many of those have happened in the last couple of years. After that, there is a loss magnitude assessment, loss event prevention, but the most important part is the actual risk assessment matrix, which you use to actually identify all of the risks at the first point, and then afterwards, see which impact do they actually have on your company. There are some simulations and theories, of course, such as the well-known Monte Carlo analysis that basically says, okay, we will take thousands of random numbers, random cases that define, an expected annual loss. And of course, there is a standard deviation from those cases. Then basically, some of our last real life cases show that a single company, not a big one, their annual loss expected value was more than 300K in US dollars, and they have dedicated a very small budget because they thought, they could prevent everything just by sitting there and expecting things to happen. And, they didn't have any budget. So it made sense to them in the actual paper that, they can actually buy us or start with buying some services. Regarding the actual technicalities, and if you want to deep dive into these subjects to actually quantify the risks, you should have a bit of background in statistics, mathematics, not too much, but understand what are functions and understand a bit about your particular business. For example, it's very important to know in which countries do you operate, what is your industry classifications, the number of records that can be stolen, what type of data is there, what time you have to notify the actual affected individuals, what would be the cost of the crisis management, and of course to at least understand that you can have a damage to your actual reputation that can sometimes not be actually quantified. So there are some, costs of credit monitoring and identity thefts that are the key of the whole, story, because we want to protect the users. But, by following the simple way to, start with asset valuation, before that asset inventory, to calculate, okay, which asset is worth what, to analyze some industry trends, you can have some real numbers to see, okay, at least compared to some of our industry peers, or compared to some history cases, what can we actually do to start showcasing the value of cybersecurity. And by that, I'm sure that you can persuade the CEO or anyone in charge to actually take care when you monetize the value of cybersecurity.